Yeah. Wearing the beard. In that video.
When your fight, gang?
September 12th.
What y'all fighting at 54 or 47?
47.
Is he gonna make it?
I don't think he's gonna make it. He couldn't. He was struggling to make 149.
I don't think he's gonna make it either. If you do, then you ain't got no closet.
Let him get up.
Huh?
Let him go up.
No,
the more weight you get after the fight, the slower you are.
Do a single espresso, shall we? 100%. Well under. Sit. It's feeling like 147. Like that too.
So, and I'm not convinced that he's still strong at 147. I think he's got a bit older. He let the bar out to go up and fight Eubank with 160 pounds. The difference between 160 and 147, it's only 13 pounds, but it makes so much difference to a guy's ability to hold a shot, to deliver a shot, to be explosive, to have that explosiveness in the middle of a fight and near the end to be able to get a guy out of there. All of those things go when you burn yourself down to make weight.
What up, though? Ryan Garcia or Conor Benn. I'm leaning towards Ryan Garcia for his experience and skills, but Conor Benn definitely has a puncher's chance. So Ryan has to be really sharp and on point and defensive minded. While he's mainly an offensive fighter, but he needs to have some turn the defense.
Conor Benn is walking into the biggest fight of his career, but newly released training footage has already started a major conversation among boxing fans. The biggest concern is not just Ryan Garcia. It is whether Benn can safely make the welterweight limit and still perform at his best when the fight finally begins.
What really concerns me about Conor Benn going into this fight is not his characteristics and and his will to win and his punch power, but making 147.
Yeah, it's going to be a
fight. Yeah. A fighter that's dead at the weight.
4 years.
We saw it in his last fight against
Regis
Prograis down at 150.
Yeah.
He looked dead at the weight.
Yeah,
the punch power wasn't there.
Over the welterweight.
Yeah, 3 pounds. I know this as a smaller fighter. Making that 3 pounds, losing 3 pounds in fluid is
killer.
Catastrophic. Yeah, it's so difficult to do. And that will drain him even more. My worry is he can't do 147 anymore.
On September 12th, at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, the British star is expected to face Ryan Garcia for the WBC welterweight world title. But recent training footage has fans looking closely at Benn's physical condition. His body appears noticeably leaner, especially around his shoulders and face, after competing at much higher weights in recent years. The big question is whether this version of Benn will still have the strength, speed, and stamina needed against a dangerous fighter like Garcia.
Conor looked very sharp at 160 against Chris Eubank, but had a much tougher time at 150 against Regis Prograis. He trained Prograis is an older fighter now and came into the fight afterwards claiming that he wasn't 100%. Tim, how do you think this affects Conor Benn having now now he has to go back down to 47 against a very talented fighter who's in his prime?
Well, first and foremost, let me just say this. My initial thoughts of this fight, drug testing. Who's gonna be doing the drug test?
Right.
That's one.
Right.
Okay?
Why do you say who?
Because I think it's very important because I think that VADA has the most extensive drug testing in boxing, right?
Yeah.
They
Correct.
test far beyond anyone else. So I don't know. Ryan in the past has always said he doesn't like VADA. Victor Conte is no longer here, so that's the reason why. And then on top of that, both these guys have tested positive for performance enhancement drugs. So I'm saying to myself, is there going to be testing for this specific fight? For this fight here?
Ben got called too?
Supposed to be eggs or something like that.
I heard. It's a lot of dirt.
To understand the concern, you have to look at Benn's history with the 147-pound limit. He has not officially made welterweight in several years. While his body became much bigger during his time preparing for fights against Chris Eubank Jr., losing a few pounds before a fight is normal. But dropping from a much heavier frame can be a completely different challenge. If a fighter loses too much strength or energy during the process, it can show up later through tired legs, slower punches, and fading stamina.
Move on, Tim. I'm afraid you are going to have to answer the question.
And the last thing is that in the last fight that we saw with Conor Benn, he was at, what 150-ish? Legs didn't look stable at all, right? He looked a little off. Balance was a little bit off. I didn't think he performed well, right, against Prograis. But I would say that in this camp here, if he stayed down in weight and kind of acclimated his body, I think he'll do well at 147
I think so too.
pounds. I think he'll do well.
What do you think?
Look, this is going to be Conor Benn's, I think first fight at 147 in 4.5 years, so that is not easy. I've been around Conor Benn a lot. He's a big guy, but he only had 6 weeks to make weight for the Regis Prograis fight. I think it's going to be a better weight cut this time around. He did it once before earlier this year. Now he has a lot more time to do it. And don't forget, right, Tim? He was a massive puncher at 147 years ago.
Yeah.
I think about the fights against Chris Algieri, Chris Van Heerden. I'm not saying those guys are killers, but those were big knockouts.
Ryan Garcia and Conor Benn, I almost called him Nigel, and Conor Benn are both big, strong, power punching welterweights. They are. If you're around Ryan or Conor, you can see they're big for the division and they can both punch for the division. But speaking of the Prograis fight, as a future Hall of Fame athlete, Shady, I do think there's something to, well, why can't he get up for this fighter the way he can get up for that fighter? Because the reality is, you cannot simulate the adrenaline. How do you really simulate the adrenaline to get up for a lesser fight on a smaller stage? It's not the same. It's not going to affect you the same way, one would think, you tell me, as when you have to fight a greater threat on a bigger stage. Yeah. His best performance was against Eubank in the rematch.
And that's a great point.
Even Eddie Hearn, who has been closely involved with Benn's career, has publicly expressed concerns about the weight. Hearn previously pointed to Benn's fight with Regis Prograis at 150 pounds and questioned how much the weight cut could affect him. Dropping another 3 pounds to reach the welterweight limit may sound like a small difference, but at the highest level, every pound can matter. And against a fast, explosive puncher like Ryan Garcia, even a small physical disadvantage could become a major problem.
Ryan Garcia versus Conor Benn, obviously it's been over 2 years since he fought at 147. How do you expect Conor to fare in that fight?
I think Conor's always going to be competitive. He trains really hard. He's got a lot of heart. I don't like him at 147 pounds now because that was one of the problems in going to 160 to fight Eubank. To come back to 140, it's a really tough thing to do. And I think when he fought Prograis, was it 151 or 150? He just didn't look the same. He looked like he was lacking power, didn't look that strong. And Ryan Garcia is a guy who's kind of built his way up to 147. He's super fit and good at the weight at 147. And he's a world-class fighter who punches very, very hard and is very sharp. So Conor's always going to be in the fight because he's got a lot of heart, but I don't see him winning that fight at 147. I think his better weight will be up towards 154. I don't think middleweight's his weight either, but I think he'll find it really tough to make that weight, and I don't think he'll feel physically where he needs to be. But listen, even with everything that's gone on, he's a British fighter. I hope he does it.
There is another issue that makes this matchup even more interesting. Ben's recent knockout record. Despite building a reputation as an aggressive puncher, he has not scored a stoppage since April 2022, when he stopped Chris Van Heerden at welterweight. Since then, his fights have gone the distance. That does not automatically mean Benn has lost his power, but it does raise an important question. Will his power return at 147 pounds? Or will the weight cut take something away from his offense?
Conor Benn is that he's not been at welterweight for 4 years. He's boxed at 160 pounds.
Yeah, he looks interesting.
As fighters, we know how hard it is to come back down in weight. Yeah. He hasn't carried the strength back down with him, making 150 last time out. Yeah. Barry, explain to the people how difficult it is to lose 3 pounds in body weight, fluid, when you're tight at the weight already. Because he looked dead at the weight of 150. So 147, that is
I don't have the time to tell you.
That's what I'm saying.
To go through it in detail, but we all...
That's my
maybe
concern.
not Fraser.
That's my concern for him.
Too.
Punch power, punch resistance, all of that gone. And the one thing that we don't know about Conor Benn yet is he world level? Because we don't know that yet. He's not. He's not boxed anyone.
Well, it's interesting
at that level yet. So
it's interesting.
It's an interesting fight.
It's interesting. That's a very point I made on. I was thinking about when I saw that he was fighting Regis Prograis, and Prograis, came up from light welterweight. He fought Josh Taylor all those years ago. Very good fighter, world champion momentarily, and then Josh took the title off him. But I asked, that was the very same thing I thought. Okay, it's okay, he's fighting Eubank at 160 pounds or thereabouts. Then suddenly he's dropping to, at an advanced stage, he's dropping to 147. What it takes out of you to drop that weight, it just kills you. It really takes so much strength. Your resistance goes. You don't even know it. Suddenly, I can't take a shot anymore. You know, your resistance goes, your ability to be explosive goes, all of that. And that's exactly the point I was thinking. How's he going to do 147 and be strong again? So, and I'm not convinced that he's still strong at 147. I think he's got a bit older. He let the bar out to go up and fight Eubank with 160 pounds. The difference between 160 and 147, it's only 13 pounds, but it makes so much difference to a guy's ability to hold a shot, to deliver a shot, to be explosive, to have that explosiveness in the middle of a fight and near the end to be able to get a guy out of there. All of those things go when you burn yourself down to make weight.
There is also a bigger story behind Benn's decision to return to welterweight. Reports have suggested that the WBC has been aware of Benn's long-term intention to fight at 147 pounds. So this move was not simply a last-minute decision. Benn has apparently been thinking about this weight class for years. But having a plan on paper is one thing. Making the weight and then performing at championship level is something completely different. And now, against Ryan Garcia, Benn is about to find out whether his body can handle the challenge.
I'm going to ask you about him at 147. A lot of people have made it a factor in the fight. When people talk about like Conor's chances, they were like, oh, you know, the first fight at 147 in 4 years. But from your end, nothing to worry about on a Conor side of weight.
No, because look, he was 147. We took fight because we knew the Eubank fight was going to happen. We took fights up at 154 for that reason. You know, he's not a 160 fighter. 154. You know, he was okay at 160. He's nowhere near that. So, you know, to come down to 147 with plenty of time ain't a big deal. You know, it was a big deal last time because he got hit with a 6 weeks notice fight. And he had to make 149 in 6 weeks. You know, so and he had no knowledge of fighting before that, so he weren't really in camp. He had 6 weeks to get ready. So of course it was going to be a bit of a struggle to make 149. But he's had ages now to get this weight down. And if you watch any of his stories, I mean, he's been on the road for the last couple of months getting this weight off. You know what I mean? So, and we've still got like 2 months to go yet. So, you know, he's going to be fine.